Hey, it's Nikki Thompson, and you're listening to Tea with Nikki, embracing your sexual energy. And today I have an amazing interview to share with you. Another incredible interview. Seriously, the women I'm getting on these interviews are just phenomenal. And today's guest is Natalie MacNeil. Now, Natalie and I actually met around 5 years ago over in Tulum in Mexico at this gorgeous resort when I was taking part in one of her business retreats. Now, I'd been in Natalie's business program for about a year. And when I came to this retreat, she really opened up my eyes to a whole new way of doing business, and it really helped me expand my awareness of doing things a little bit differently. Now, over the past year or so, I've watched as Natalie has pivoted in her business, and she's established the Embodiment Institute, which is a new coaching institute to support people in their coaching careers in a range of different modalities. And she talks about tantra, and she talks about EFT, emotional freedom technique, which is tapping, a whole range of different things that she teaches at her institute now, which is an incredible journey that she's been on in her own personal life and now in her business. So today she shares all of that whole journey, and it's just something you really have to listen to. So I cannot wait to welcome Natalie MacNeil to the podcast. Let's get into it. Welcome, Natalie. I'm so excited to have you on here. I've been kind of watching your journey. We've met in person a number of years ago in a business retreat at your retreat. And I've been watching your shift and your pivot into a whole new section, which is what we're going to talk about today. So thank you so much for coming on this morning.
I am so thrilled to be here to reconnect with you, to connect to all of the beautiful people listening. Hello to all of you, and just really excited that we're diving into this.
Excellent. So the podcast is all about tapping into and embracing our sexual energies, our feminine energy, our sexual side. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And what I really, really want to be chatting to you about is that shift that you've made from kind of, being in the business world for a long time in online marketing. It's very like hustle, hustle, hustle. And you've made this beautiful shift that I've been watching on social media and online. And I would love to know what happened. Like, was there like a key point or something that happened that made you shift into something a little bit more about your sexual side and your feminine energy?
Wow. That question just brings me into a space of reflection on the whole journey that I've been on. And there was a pivotal moment for me when I chose to immigrate from Canada to the US, because in that process, it was really a releasing of my entire identity as I had formed that identity. The identity that was rooted in societal expectations and conditioning from my upbringing, from being in church, going to church growing up, all of these different elements that made up this identity that really started to shake, was really shaken when I chose to make that move, because I was leaving the city that I grew up in. I had lived around family, friends I had had for a long time. So to step out of all of that and to pursue a journey of recreating my life on my own really gave me an opportunity to peel back all of these layers and to continue to be in a space of inquiry around how would I choose to see this? How would I choose to do things? How would I choose to be doing this one particular thing if it weren't for my conditioning? So I just spent a couple years in deep inquiry around the ways that I was doing things, the ways that I was showing up in the world, in my business, in my relationships, and asking myself, would I choose this again? And how would I choose to see the world or choose to see this without those layers of conditioning or that lens of the identity that I had formed? So there was all of that piece that sort of started to unfold around 2016. But then I feel like I would be doing the whole journey a disservice in not sharing that my sexual energy is something that I have always felt very connected to. So I can remember feeling a connection to it, especially in my teenage years when that energy is first starting to really awaken. I had a lot of beautiful experiences with sexuality and sexual energy in my teenage years, and then less so in my 20s as I was really focused on building my business, and I was in a relationship as well for my entire 20s decade. And then that really started to open up again, moving into my 30s, into that move that I made from Canada to the US. And it just continues to deepen. There's definitely been a deepening in the last few years, especially over the last year, just over a year and a half of being in partnership with someone who is also on that journey and has studied tantra and is tantric and can meet me in that space. But I've felt a connection to that energy, and I can see the moments in which I repressed it or formed like layers around it, or felt like I wasn't supposed to show up in this way, or I felt shame around some of the things that I felt. So that is the shortest way I can
That's
share a little bit more about my journey.
Yeah, well, I would love to know when you're talking about, and it's such a beautiful experience to be able to move and have a very distinct physical shift, like from Canada to the US, and be able to look at those layers that we are holding on to. And I would love to know, when you talk about how you were repressing some of that sexual energy and there was shame, because that's a big one. For me, I had a lot of shame in my teens and my 20s, and I really covered it. It wasn't until my 30s that I was kind of like, I felt like I'd always been in touch, but I was starting to unpeel those layers and that shame story that I had around it. So was there something that you felt or that you were able to identify that helped you move through that shame, or from holding it down?
The thing that helped me the most was definitely my exploration of Tantra, which started in my early 20s when I was still in this long-term relationship that I had been in throughout my 20s. And I deepened in that, but it was on my own through that time. And now being in a relationship where I am in practice and in ritual with somebody, and we can unpack things together, that has also led to a lot of big shifts. So I would say that a pivotal moment for me in being able to step into a space of reclaiming my sexuality began with my first studies of Tantra in my early 20s. And for me, that experience was also a lot about my solo journey. It was about me reconnecting with my sexuality and doing that for myself, engaging in self-pleasuring practices, coming back into relationship between the masculine and feminine within me so that I could be integrated in that sense. It wasn't for anybody else. It wasn't to, and I think Tantra, there's a lot of things that get misperceived. There's a lot of mistruths about what it is because it's so beyond just sex, which some people view it as just sex and sex positions and ways of having sex. And that's just not the case. And for me, the ritual aspect of it was also really important. And just opened so much and really allowed me to step into my power.
Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. And I do believe that Tantra's kind of got this almost like overly sexual image, you know, when it's really not. And I love this book, Urban Tantra, which really kind of explores more about that empowerment as a woman, and for men as well. But for me, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is what it's really about. And being okay with different thoughts and being okay with different experiences and learning what I enjoy and what, you know, without having the expectations of needing to please someone else in that moment. It was all coming back to me. And that was what I felt was a big aha moment. You know, I think, you know, especially as a teenager, everything about sex is always with somebody else for, you know, like, for me, it was always like, oh, how can you, when you're having sex for the first time, make sure he's enjoying it, make sure, you know, all of these things. And it never felt like it was about me and what I needed and what I wanted and my own experiences.
Yes. And that is like, that is the controlling over a woman's sexuality. You know, the world, the patriarchy has been afraid of a woman who is expressed sexually, and we are taught to repress. There's so much conditioning. There's a lot of even negativity that we project onto women who are connected with that part of themselves. And it is for, like, when I think about the earliest, my earliest experiences with the media, when I think about some of the first things that I remember reading about sex in magazines, it's like you see it in the grocery store. You know, I remember being with my mom at a grocery store and seeing the covers of the magazines, like the 21 blowjob techniques that will blow his mind, or the things that you have to wear to get him off. Like we're bombarded with that. So to actually return to what is my connection with my sexuality and with my sexual energy, which is the energy of creation. The energy of creation itself. It is the most powerful energy that we can work with. And what is my relationship to it? And how do I want to cultivate that? How do I want to experience my pleasure, experience that powerful part of me? And it's still a journey. There's so many layers to uncover. And even though I've been on this journey for a while, sometimes, you know, I'm very grateful to now be in a tantric partnership where I have someone who can hold me in whatever's coming up. And we have so much stored there. Like we have, especially women, there's so much trauma stored in our womb spaces, and so much shame and conditioning around our sexuality. Sometimes, like when we are making love or we're in ritual together, things will activate for me, or I'll have a memory or something will come up that I remember, that I can work through in that moment because I have someone who can hold that space with me. So it's been interesting doing the work on my own, and then now being in a relationship where I have a partner who can hold me in that, which allows me to go even deeper. And there are still things that I uncover and that I see and that I'm like, what? ah. And it's beautiful to just get to work through all of those layers.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And so how have you kind of used that or tapped into that, or was there a practice that you've implemented to help you move into this new space? So it's the Embodiment Institute is your new kind of focus, like business focus, which is so incredible.
Thank
So
you.
how did you kind of come up with this, and how have you tapped into that energy to create this?
I spent more than a decade working with thousands of women entrepreneurs and leaders. And what I came to realize was that when somebody wanted to grow their business, when somebody would come to me and they were like, this isn't working, or I need a new marketing strategy, or make a campaign with me, let's create a business plan. What I started to see again and again was that if a woman was not in her power, if a woman had not done that deeper inner work to really feel aligned with the work that she was doing, with what she was setting out to achieve, with her goals, there was always just these huge blocks that would have to be overcome. And I started to see how women forced things instead of just went with the flow. I started to see how women were doing things the same way that men had done them. And it was leading to burnout. It was leading to a sense of not feeling fulfilled. It's like you could achieve, and this was my own experience too, I would achieve like one thing after another, and it felt like I was forcing, I was hustling, I was making things happen. And living in that place felt so unnatural to my most natural state, which is more flow, which is allowing and I want to make it very clear, because I think we've been talking a lot about the rise of the feminine, and this has been a conversation, and I see it more as being in balance. So the masculine energy has a clear purpose as well as it relates to my work. And I do a lot of work internally on that balance between the masculine and feminine as well. And so when I'm working, I want the masculine and feminine to be working together, for the masculine to be able to hold, to be the container in which the feminine has direction. I want to be able to channel my feminine energy into different spaces in my work, and have the masculine sort of take the lead on those projects and be the container. So I really see my masculine and feminine, and we all have masculine and feminine energy, as being a team. They're like teammates. They're like co-CEOs of my business now.
Yeah.
And I started to do some of that work with my clients as well. So as I was reclaiming the feminine and I was coming into balance in my life, in my business, I started to bring some of those practices into the work I was doing with other women, and I was seeing the shift in their businesses. I was seeing the shift in their lives when they were doing the inner work, not just focusing on strategy and achieving goals and all of that. And I started to see these beautiful shifts and transformations happen, and developed a body of work that I call transformational embodiment. That is the holistic multimodality coaching methodology that I have created, and that is at the heart of the Embodiment Institute. And transformational embodiment is about doing that deeper inner work. And from that place, then we get to step into creating all that we desire. And the goals that we set out, any kind of doing, any kind of actions, are rooted in and inspired by our way of being first.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. And so when you work with clients now, do you see like a dramatic shift for them? Like, do you see that is shifting quicker or in a more organic way than what you've worked with people before?
It feels like everything is accelerating right now. Growth is accelerating. It feels like we're in this really amazing shift. And I am seeing my clients do this work and get very different results, step into new ways of being, and as a result, feeling much more fulfillment, also experiencing abundance and love and joy. And there's just this connection to themselves and a reclamation of themselves. Like my clients and our students in Reveal. Reveal is the entry-level program at the Embodiment Institute. People are coming home to themselves, and it is the most beautiful thing. One of the core things that we do in transformational embodiment and at the Embodiment Institute is we don't just focus on transformation from a mental level. So one of the things that I see perpetuated in the coaching and the personal development space is this idea that mindset is everything, that we have to change our mindset. That's how we get what we want. The mindset is only one layer of our being, one aspect of our being. We have an energetic body, we have an emotional body, we have a physical body, we have a spiritual body. And so we focus on transformation on all those different layers of being rather than just focusing on mind, which is what makes it a more holistic approach to transformation. And it's really embodying the transformation, embodying our desires, embodying our future visions that we hold, and then creating that transformation that really is lasting because it's on every layer of our being rather than just in the mind.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the work that we do through tools like breath work, and emotional freedom technique is another one. We just tap into those different layers of being. And from that space, when you are home in yourself, it's like anything is possible.
Oh, wow. Oh, that sounds amazing. I love that. And I remember when I did come to your retreat in Tulum, you did like a sound, the crystal bowls, like the sound therapy. Yes. And that was the first time I'd ever done it. And it was in this like cathedral, like this small little chapel.
Yes.
And I was like, walked away thinking, holy shit, what just happened? Like, what was that? And that was when I kind of started to think. I was very much had been doing the personal development journey since I was probably 17, read my first kind of Louise Hay book. But it was everything that I had been reading and doing was still very masculine and very all about mindset. And it was when you did that, and I just felt different. Like I felt so different. And yeah, that was my first introduction to other modalities. Like, there's other things that we can do. And that's when I started kind of exploring. And so, yeah, really, really incredible experience then. So I can only imagine the type of things. And I know for me, EFT has been very helpful in a number of different ways. And it's so simple, but it's not, I think it's becoming more, available, more people are becoming more aware of it, but using it in this way I think is just I hadn't thought of that either, so that's brilliant. Amazing.
Thank you so much for that reflection, because I have been doing this work actually for a really long time, and while I am just pivoting and focusing the messaging in that direction, I've been teaching this stuff for years. I've been doing embodiment work for years. I've been teaching and leading breath work for 7 or 8 years now. And it was always part of, especially the in-person experiences that I had with people. And when people would come on retreats, it just wasn't part of my whole online brand. And listening to you speak, it's like I get emotional hearing it, because it's been there. It's been there. And there have been so many times when I have almost like hid from it in a way. And it's not what I led with, but it's what you would always get once you entered the gateway and came into our work and our brand. Um, and now it's like better late than never. But I hear that, and I'm both filled with so much joy that you had that experience. And I loved some of those Mexico retreats that we did. And I could feel at the time, like I could feel that sort of awakening within me of like, this is what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah.
This is the work that I'm actually here for. And the transition from where I was, what I was leading with, the messaging, all of that, to where I am now and fully stepping into the Embodiment Institute, there were so many layers to peel back. Like I had run that business for so long, and it's like such a big community that I really got stuck in my head for a little while around, can I do that? Like, what are people going to think? What are people going to say? Are people going to abandon me? Like, moving into that process myself allowed me to look at a lot of my own insecurities where I held myself back, limiting beliefs. There was a lot of personal work for me to go through to be able to step fully into this. And it's taken that retreat that you were on was probably like 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, 2015. Yeah.
2015. And so there's a joy that I'm doing it now. And there's also this feeling of like, this is what I should have been doing all along. And at the time I was also moving and going through that whole transition. So right after that retreat is when my identity had really started to unravel as I went through that move. And then I haven't done a deep dive retreat like that pretty much since then.
Yeah.
And because of coronavirus, we will not do that this year either. But next year, when we're through all of this, that's what I plan on resuming again. So thank you for those reflections and for taking me back and allowing me to see the journey that I've been on of like knowing that that's what I'm here for, but the whole process of claiming that, like really claiming it. Whew.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm really glad you shared that. And I think for me, going from being very, very much a structured marketing consultant, Facebook ads focus, like everything's very structured, very strategic. And I wanted to shift into this type of work and coaching women all about sexual energy. But I'm like, oh shit, like it's such a shift, it's going from one area to another. But at the same time, even when running campaigns and doing all that, I would listen to my intuition. People are like, oh, why are we changing it? I'm like, it just feels right. Like it just, and it was always hard to explain. So I think moving into this was difficult. Again, I had thought, what are people going to think? Like my dad's on Facebook. He's going to be listening to me talking about orgasms and sexual energy and all this kind of, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. But I realized that this is what, this has been my journey, and the women that I've been helping, like I can't say no to that anymore. It's kind of, you get to a point where you're like, I can't say no anymore. I'm just going to go all in. And it really is just getting really stepping into it, but it's scary. And I hope women listening to this, take at least that away from this conversation, that, there's going to be different times. And even me, like I was looking up to you and you're like, oh my, you've got this incredible business, and then you've pivoted as well. I'm like, holy shit, like she can do this. Like I can do this.
And it's like, for anyone listening who feels
Mm,
the fear of making such a monumental transition or
mm,
change, I totally get it. Like, I
mm.
let go of so much in making that change and in being loyal to my own soul and to the
Mm,
calling of my soul. And when you are stepping into a space of saying, I'm going to trust my intuition, that that voice, that calling that is on your heart, on your soul, that is whispering to you, it is there for a reason. It is pulling you in that direction for a reason. And it requires you to really step into a place of trust and surrender. And it's not easy. And it almost always will require you to let go, to release, to burn away a
yeah.
lot in that process. For me it
Yeah.
felt like, and I felt that call I was just before I did the move. I had been in ceremony. It was a ceremony I was in Brazil, and I just remember hearing it was so clearly, like just so clearly a call, and I could hear the voice, the words, like I remember them so clearly, and it was like I got visions of the life that I was meant to live and where
Mm,
I was going, and the voice was like, this is going to require you to let everything you know now be burned away. Like everything has to go. That was my relationship, my home, where I was living, who I thought I was. My business was like the one thing in that transition that I really clinged to because it felt like it was the only thing I had
yeah.
left from that old identity. And I kept hearing like everything has got to go. And I have, and it's taken a few years, recreated and continued to trust, let go of products and programs that generated millions of dollars in revenue, and just continued to allow myself to walk through that fire, continue to step into the fire and let everything burn away. And now I can see what it was all for, and I feel like I'm living this life beyond what I had even imagined for myself.
Yeah.
But I couldn't always see that at the time. Like there were moments that brought me to my knees, and I trusted the calling of my soul, and I was loyal to that calling. I was
Mm,
loyal to my soul through all of it. And I believe that we are rewarded for that bravery of stepping into it. Um, and I'm seeing those rewards now.
yeah.
And I can look around at my life now, and I can see so many dreams that I had once dreamed, so many visions that are here. I'm living inside of that vision. I can see even things that are beyond my wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And the journey here though was hard fought and required just a complete like stripping down of who I thought I was. So I guess if you're listening to this and you're in a period of transition yourself, or you're contemplating making a transition, or you've been hearing the whispers, you've been hearing the calling of your soul, like what's it going to be? And at the end of your life, when you're reflecting on where you've been, the path that you've been walking, do you really want to be wondering, like, what if I had
Yeah.
followed that calling? Or would you rather be in reflection of the journey of being loyal to your soul?
Yeah.
And that's what I've decided to choose above everything else, above money, above certain opportunities, relationships, like above all else. I'm choosing to be loyal and to listen to those callings and trust my intuition, even when it eclipses what's logical, even when it's hard. And it has not failed me yet.
Yeah, that is amazing. Wow. Thank you so much for just being so open today. I really, really appreciate it. And I feel like people listening could feel that passion and energy that you're sharing with us today. And I really, really appreciate that. And I just want to acknowledge you for, you know, the unique way that you're taking on like the personal development side of things. It's incredible. You're an amazing role model. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I also want to thank you for having me on. Thank you for being with me on this journey for a little while, connecting with me years ago. And thank you for your bravery in trusting the calling that you were hearing as well, and choosing to step into doing this work and supporting women in reclaiming their power through reclaiming their sexuality. I really believe that this awakening that we are in, and women diving deeper into that, I believe that it is going to create so many shifts on this planet. We are ushering in a new paradigm and new ways of being, and you are part of that too. So many of the people listening to this podcast are part of that shift. Yeah. And we all need each other. We are in this together. We're bringing in a new paradigm on this planet. It's exciting.
It's so exciting.
And it can also be stressful. It can also bring up a lot of fear. It's not an easy path, but it's definitely a worthwhile one. And I am so grateful to be on this journey with you, Nikki, and with everybody listening.
Thank you so much.
We're changing the world.
Now, just before we do finish, I just would love to know, where would be the best place for people to find out more about everything that you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, come on over to nataliemacneil.com. That is Nataliemacneil.com. And you'll get linked up there to some of our rituals that you can download and listen to, some of the practices that have really served me. You'll get linked up to the Embodiment Institute and the certification that we are offering there. And then come visit me on Instagram at Natalie MacNeil and let me know your biggest takeaway from this episode.
Awesome. Well, I will put the link in the show notes as well. So thank you so much. Awesome. It was great to chat.
Thank you, Nikki. So